Jane? What is the matter?
I've been seeing Geoffrey.
Is this the effect seeing Geoffrey has?
You see, I know now how he spoiled someone else's life.
And who tells you that?
Several people have told me.
Well, you should be careful how you believe what you hear.
You know it's true.
I know that it is possible to be mistaken.
I see. You're trying to shield him.
Why should I?
How you must love him.
Jane, listen to me.
What's the use of going on denying it? Geoffrey doesn't. Don't look at me like that. I shall bring him back to you.
You would be impertinent if you weren't such a romantic child.
Yes, but...
You can't bring him back. But there's something you can do. Bring him to the point where he recognizes that he is in our debt.
In our debt?
In debt to women. He can't repay the one he robbed.
Yes. Yes.
No. He can't repay the dead. But there are the living. There are the thousands with hope still in their hearts and youth still in their blood. Let him help them. Let him be a friend to women.
Yes. Yes. I understand. That too. Thank you.
Well, you rather gave us the slip, Vida. I believe Mr. Stornor wants to see you for a few minutes, but I'd like a word with you first. I know, my dear, you're not aware of what that impulsive girl wants to insist on.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
But it isn't with your sanction, surely, that she goes on making this extraordinary demand.
I didn't sanction it at first, but I've been thinking it over.
Then all I can say is that I am greatly disappointed in you. You threw this man over years ago for reasons, whatever they were, that seemed to you good and sufficient, and now you come between him and a younger woman just to play nemesis, so far as I can make out.
Is that what he says?
He says nothing that isn't very considerate.
Well, I can see he's changed.
And you're unchanged, is that it?
I changed even more than he.
But you still care about him, Vida?
No.
I see. It's just that you wish to marry somebody.
Oh, Susan, there are no men listening.
No, I didn't suppose there were.
Then why keep up that old pretense?
What pretense?
That to marry at all costs is every woman's dearest ambition till the grave closes her over. You and I both know it isn't true.
Well, but it was just the unexpected sight of him bringing it back. That wasn't what fired you this afternoon. Of course, the memory of a thing like that can never be dimmed. For the woman.
I mean her to think so.
Jean. And it isn't so?
You don't seriously believe a woman with anything else to think about comes to the end of 10 years still absorbed in a memory of that sort?
You've got over it then.
If the newspapers didn't remind me, I shouldn't remember once in a 12-month that there was ever such a person as Geoffrey Stornor in the world.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yes, I'm glad too.
And if Geoffrey Stornor offered you what's called reparation, you'd refuse it?
Geoffrey Stornor, to me, he's simply one of the far back links in a chain of evidence. It's certain I think 100 times of other women's present unhappiness to once that I remember that old happiness of mine that's past. I think of the nail and chain makers of Cradley Health. I think of the sweated girls of the slums. I think of the army of ill-used women whose very existence I mustn't mention.
Then why in heaven's name do you let poor Jean imagine?
Susan, look, I'll trust you. I don't suffer from that old wrong as Jean thinks I do, but I shall coin her sympathy into gold for a greater cause than mine.
I don't understand you.
Jean isn't old enough to care about a principle as much as about a person, but if my half-forgotten pain can turn her generosity into the common treasury,
What do you suppose she shall do, poor child?
use her hold over Geoffrey Stornor to make him help us.
Help you?
Help us. The man who served one woman, God knows how many more, very ill, shall serve hundreds of thousands well. Geoffrey Stornor shall make it harder for his son, harder still for his grandson, to treat any woman as he treated me.
And how will they do that?
By putting an end to the helplessness of women.
You must think he has a great deal of power.
Power? Yes, men have too much power over penniless and frightened women.
What nonsense! You talk as though women had their share of human nature. We are made of ice any more than the men.
No, but all the same, we have more self-control.
Than men.
You know we have.
I know we mustn't admit it.
For fear they'd call us fishes.
They talk of our lack of self-control, but it's the last thing they want women to have.
Oh, we know what they want us to have. So we make shift to have it. If we don't, we go without hope. Sometimes we go without bread.
Vida, do you mean to say that you...
I mean to say that men's vanity won't let them see it, but the thing's largely a question of economics.
You never loved him then.
Oh, yes, I loved him. Once. It was my helplessness turned the best thing life can bring into a curse for the both of us.
I don't understand you.
Oh, being understood. That's too much to expect. When people come to know I've joined the union...
But you won't...
Who is there who will resist the temptation to say, poor Vida Levering, what a pity she hasn't got a husband and a baby to keep her quiet. The few who know about me, they'll be equally sure that it's not the larger view of life I've gained. My own poor little story is responsible for my new departure. My best friend, she will be surest of all. But it's a private sense of loss, or nowhere yet a grudge. But I tell you, the only difference between me and thousands of women with husbands and babies is that I'm free to say what I think. They aren't.
I must get back. My poor ill-used guests.
I won't ring. I think you'll find Mr. Stornor downstairs waiting for you.
Oh, he will have let word about the car in any case.
Well, Mr. Trent, I didn't expect to see you this evening.
Why not? Have I ever failed you?
Lady John, this is one of our allies. He is good enough to squire me through the rabble from time to time.
Well, I think it's very handsome of you after what you said today about men.
I have no great opinion of most men myself. I think, and I might add, of most women.
Oh, well, at any rate, I shall go away relieved to think that Miss Levering's plain speaking hasn't alienated all masculine regard.
Why shouldn't it?
That's right, Mr. Trent. Don't believe all she says in the heat of propaganda.
I do believe all she says, but I'm not cast down.
Not when she says...
Was there never a misogynist of my sex who ended by deciding to make an exception?
Oh, if that's what you build on.
Well, why shouldn't a man-hater on your side prove equally open to reason?
That part of the question doesn't concern me. I've come to a place where I realize that the first battles of this new campaign must be fought by women alone. The only effective help men could give, amendment of the law, they refuse. The rest is nothing.
Don't be ungrateful, Vida. Here's Mr. Trent ready to face criticism in publicly championing you.
It's an illusion that I, as an individual, need Mr. Trent. I'm quite safe in the crowd. Please don't wait for me, and don't come for me again.
Of course.
Oh, and that reminds me. I was asked to thank you and tell you, too, that the women of the union, they won't need your chairmanship anymore. Though that I beg you to believe has nothing to do with any feeling of mine.
Of course. I know there must be other men ready. Better known men.
Oh, no. It isn't that. It's simply, they find a man can't keep a rowdy mating in order as well as a woman.
I completely agree.
You aren't serious.
Haven't you noticed that all their worst disturbances come when men are in charge?
Yes, such a smart decision indeed. Well, I hadn't connected the two ideas at first, but well, I guess this is goodbye. Farewell, Miss Levering.
Farewell.
That nice boy's in love with you. Goodbye. I wish you hadn't been so unkind to that nice boy.
Do you?
Yes, for then I would be more certain of your telling Geoffroy Stornor that intelligent women don't nurse their wrongs and lie in wait to punish them.
You are not certain?
Are you?
Well, have they primed you? Have you got your lesson by heart at last?
I'm not sure I understand you, however unpromptuous your mood may be. I shall discharge my errand. I promise to make you an offer in which I believe is called amends.
You've come to realize then, after all these years, that you owed me something?
I'm not here to deny it.
Well, pay then. Pay.
I promise that if you exact it, I will.
If I insist you'll make it all good, then don't you know you must pay me in kind?
Do you mean?
Give me back what you took from me. My old faith, give me that.
If you mean to make phrases.
Or give me back mere kindness or even tolerance. Oh, I don't mean your tolerance. Give me back the power to think fairly of my brothers, not as mockers, thieves.
I have not mocked you, and I have asked you.
Something you knew I should refuse, or did you dare be afraid I wouldn't?
I suppose if we set our teeth, we could.
I couldn't. Not even if I set my teeth, and you wouldn't dream of asking me if you thought there was the smallest chance.
I can do no more than make you an offer of such reparation as in my power. If you do not accept it...
Accept it? No. Go away and live in debt. Pay and pay and pay, and find yourself still in debt for a thing you'll never be able to give me back. And when you come to die, say to yourself, I paid all creditors but one.
I'm rather tired, of this talk of debt. If I hear persist in it, I shall have to...
What?
No, I'll keep to my resolution.
What resolution?
I came here under considerable pressure to speak of the future, not reopen the past.
The future and the past are one.
You talk as if old madness was mine alone. It is the woman's way.
I know. And it's not fair. Men suffer as well as we by the woman starting wrong. We're taught to think of the man a sort of demigod. He tells her, go down into hell. Down into hell she goes.
Make no mistake, not the woman alone. They go down together.
Yes, they go down together, but the man comes up alone, as a rule. It's more convenient so, for him and for the other woman.
My conscience is clear. I know, and so do you, that most men in my position wouldn't have troubled themselves. I gave myself the endless trouble.
So you've gone about all these years feeling that you discharged every obligation?
Not only that, I stood by you with fidelity that was nothing short of quixotic. If woman-like you must recall the past, I insist on you recalling it correctly.
You think I don't recall it correctly?
Not when you make other people believe that I deserted you. It's a curious enough charge when you stop to consider it.
Well, when we do, just for 5 minutes out of 10 years, when we do stop to consider.
Lee, remember, it was you who did the deserting. Since you had to rake up the story, you might have had the fairness to tell the facts.
You think the facts would have excused you?
No doubt you've forgotten them. Since Lady John tells me you wouldn't remember my existence once a year if the newspapers didn't.
Ah, you minded that.
I minded your giving false impressions. Do you deny that you returned my letters unopened?
No.
Do you deny that you refused to see me and that when I persisted you vanished?
I do not deny any of those things.
I had no trace of you for years.
I suppose not.
Very well then. What could I do?
Nothing. It was too late to do anything.
It wasn't too late. You knew since you read the papers that my father died the same year. There was no longer any barrier between us.
Oh, yes, there was a barrier.
Of your own making, then.
I had my guilty share in it, but the barrier was your invention.
It was no invention. If you had known my father.
The echoes. How often you used to say, if I knew your father. But you said too. You called the barrier by another name.
What name?
The child that was to come.
That was before my father died, when I still hoped to get his consent.
Oh, the thought of that all-powerful personage used to terrorize me. What chance had a little unborn child against the last of the great feudal lords, as you called him?
You know the child would have stood between you and me.
I know the child did stand between you and me.
It did stand.
Happy mothers teach their children. Mine had to teach me.
You talk as if.
Teach me that a woman may do a thing for love that shall kill love.
You certainly made it plain that you have no love left for me.
I had need of it all for the baby.
Do you mean that after all it lived?
No. I mean that it was sacrificed, but it showed me no barrier so impassable as the one a little child can raise.
Was that why?
Day and night. There it was. Between my thought of you and me, I was most unhappy I would wake, thinking I heard it cry. It was my own crying I heard, but I seemed to have it in my arms. I suppose I was mad. I used to lie there in that lonely farmhouse, pretending to hush it. It was so I hushed myself.
I never knew.
I didn't blame you. You couldn't risk being with me.
You agreed that for both our sakes.
Yes. You had to be very circumspect. You were so well known. Your autocratic father, your brilliant political future.
Be fair. Our future, as I saw it then.
Yes. It all hung on concealment. It must have looked quite simple to you. You didn't know that the ghost of a child that had never seen the light, the frail thing you meant to sweep aside and forget, have swept aside and forgotten. You didn't know it was strong enough to push you out of my life. It can do more. It can push that girl out. It can do more still.
Are you threatening me?
No, I'm preparing you.
For what?
For the work that must be done, either with your help or that girl's. One of two things. Either her life and all she has given to this new service, or a ransom if I give her up to you.
I see it. Price. Well,
Even if I could trust you to pay, no. It'd be a poor bargain to give her up for anything you could do.
in spite of your assumption, she may not be your tool.
You are horribly afraid she is, but you are wrong. Don't think it's merely I that have got a hold of Jean Pickett.
Who else?
The new spirit that's abroad. How else should that inexperienced girl have felt the new loyalty and responded as she did?
New indeed, however little loyal.
And loyal above all, but no newer than electricity was when it first lit up the world. It had been there since the world began, waiting to do away with the dark. So has the thing you're fighting.
The thing I'm fighting is nothing more than one person's hold on a highly sensitive imagination. I consented to this interview with the hope. It only remains for me to show her that your true motive is revenge.
Once say that to her, and you are lost. I know what it is. It even seems as if it must be through fear that your enlightenment will come. That is why I see a value in Jean Pickett far beyond her fortune, more than any girl I know. If I keep her from you, that gentle, inflexible creature could rouse in men the old superstitious fear.
Fear. I believe you are mad.
Mad, unsexed. These are the words today in the Middle Ages. Men cried out, "Witch!" and burnt her. The woman who served no man's bed or board.
You want to make that poor child believe.
She sees for herself. We've come to a place where we find there's a value in women apart from the value men see in them. You would teach us not to look to you for some of the things we need most. If women must be freed by women, we have need of such as... Who knows? She may be the new Joan of Arc.
That she should be the sacrifice.
You have taught us to look very calmly on the sacrifice of women. Men tell us in every tongue it's a necessary evil. One girl's happiness against a thing nobler than happiness for thousands. Well, who can hesitate? Not Jean.
Good God. Can you see this crazed campaign you started on her? Even if it's successful, it can only be sought through the help of men. What excuse shall you make your own soul not to go straight to the goal?
You think we wouldn't be glad to go straight to the goal?
I do. I see you'd much rather punish me and see her revel in morbid self-sacrifice.
You say I want to punish you only because, like most men, you won't take the trouble to understand what we do want, or how determined we are to have it. You can't kill this new spirit among women. and you couldn't make a greater mistake than to think it finds a home only in the exceptional or the unhappy. It's so strange, Geoffrey, to see a man like you as much deluded as the Hyde Park loafers who say to Ernestine blunt, "Who's hurt your feelings?" And why not realize this is a thing that goes deeper than personal experience? And yet, if you take only the narrowest personal view, a good deal depends upon what you and I agree upon in the next 5 minutes.
You recommend my realizing the larger issues, but in your ambition to attach a girl to chariot wheels of progress, you quite ignore the fact that people fit her for such work. The men you look to enlist in the end are ready and waiting to give you the chance.
Men are ready. What men?
Women have themselves to blame for the question has grown so delicate that responsible people shrink for the moment from being implicated on it.
We have seen the shrinking.
Without quoting anyone else, I might point out that the new antagonism seems to have blinded you for the small fact that I, for one, am not an opponent.
The phrase has a familiar ring. We have heard it from 420 others.
If I spoke, if I may so, of someone who would count. Someone who could carry his party along with him or risk a seat in the cabinet.
Did you mean you were ready to do that?
An hour ago I was.
An hour ago.
Exactly. You don't understand men. They can be led, they can't be driven. 10 minutes before you came into the room, I was ready to say that I would throw my political lot into this reform.
And now?
Now you're blocking my way by an attempt of coercion. By forcing my hand, you give adherents an air of bargain driving for personal end. Exactly the mistake ignorant agitators of your union, as you so call it. You have a great deal to learn. This movement will go forward, not because of the agitation, but in spite of it. There are men in Parliament who would have been actually serving the reform today as actively as a vast constitutional change.
And they haven't done it because...
Because it would have put a premium on breaches of decent behavior. Look here.
It's very good. I see only one objection.
Objection.
You haven't sent it.
That is your fault.
When did you write this?
Just before you came in, when...
It must have pleased Jean, that letter. I could drive a hard and fast bargain with you, but I think I won't. If both love and ambition urge you on, perhaps... After all, life hasn't been quite fair to you. You fall out of one ardent woman's dreams into another's.
You may as well tell me. Do you mean to?
To keep you and her apart? No.
What can I do for you? For the real you, not the reformer, the would-be politician. For the woman I so unwillingly hurt. You may not believe it, but now I understand. There's almost nothing I wouldn't do to right that old wrong.
There's nothing to be done. You can never give me back my child.
That ghosts give you no rest.
Yes. Oh, yes. I see life as nobler than I knew. There's work to do.
Why should you think that it's only you these 10 years have taught something to? Why not give even a man credit for a willingness to learn something? And be sorry, profoundly sorry for the pain his instruction has caused. You seem to think I've taken it all quite lightly, and that's not fair. All my life ever since you disappeared, the thought of you has hurt. I would give anything I possessed to know you were happy again.
Happiness.
Why shouldn't you find it still?
I see. She couldn't help telling you about Allan Trent. Susan couldn't.
One of the people the years have not taken from, but given more to. You're more than ever. You haven't lost your beauty.
The god saw it was so little effectual. It wasn't worth taking away. One woman's mishap. What is that? A thing as trivial to the great world as it's sordid in most eyes, but time has come when a woman may look about her and say, what general significance has my secret pain? Does it join on to anything? And I find it does. I am no longer merely a woman who has stumbled on the way. I'm one who has got up, bruised and bleeding, wiped the dust from her hands and the tears from her face, and said to herself, not merely, here is one luckless woman, but here is a stone of stumbling to many. Let's see if it can't be moved out of other women's way. And she calls people to come and help. No mortal man, let alone a woman, by herself, can move that rock of offense. But if many help, the thing can be done.
Lord, how you care.
Don't be so sad. I shall tell you a secret. Jean's ardent dreams needn't frighten you if she has a child. That, from the beginning, it was not the strong arm. It was the weakest little arms that subdued the fiercest of us. You will have other children, Geoffrey. For me, there was to be only one. Well, since men alone have tried and failed to make a decent world for the little children to live in, it's as well some of us are childless. Yes, we are the ones who have no excuse for standing aloof from the fight.
Vida?
Yes? Well-behaved women seldom make history.